In this episode, we infiltrate an abandoned underground airbase.
My name is Legatus. These are my adventures.
Years ago, a top-secret military complex capable of withstanding a nuclear attack was destroyed. This is the story about a stronghold hidden away in a mountain, somewhere in the outer regions of southern Europe. Chapter 1: Guardian of the Gate. Before we begin our adventure, we must first pay our respects to the gatekeeper.
I found a geocache. Nice. Let's sign it. Thank you. Let's put it back into the box. Nice.
Before we head to our main objective, let's take a closer look at the interior of the plane. I'm not usually one to follow the beaten path, but I make an exception here. Why, you may ask? Well, I will explain the reasons in detail in the mission briefing. Also, I'm German. It's basically in my genes to comply to structure and rules. Well, most of the time. Now, let's continue a story about the rise and fall of an underground airbase. So, you may wonder, who parked the plane here? The long answer is, it's an old Douglas C-47 Dakota. This type of plane is a military transport aircraft that was used extensively by the Allies during World War II. The plane is right next to a former military base that is along the path to our main objective. That's why I called the plane the Gatekeeper. As you may have noticed, there are bullet holes all over the exterior. So, my best guess is that it was retired here. The aircraft was quite damaged by time and weather. Metal thieves and souvenir collectors also play their part. And obviously people with stickers. Well, and maybe I'm also to blame. There are also two F-84 fighter planes in the area, but I haven't actively searched for them. For the same reason, I took the beaten path. Because I want to live. Chapter 2: Infiltration. This was the easy part. Now we have to get creative. The problem is that my target location is very close to a state border, and therefore the border police has a very strong presence in the area. According to my research, confrontations usually proceed relatively harmless, that is, with a friendly conversation. Of course, only if you have the right passport, which I have. Still, I want to play it safe. I'm operating Greyman style, so I'm dressed like an ordinary hiker. My plan is to sneak into the location as quietly and silently as possible. As soon as I reach the entry to the tunnel system, I'll switch to my protective equipment. Alright, without further ado, let's ride! Wait. It's 3 kilometers? I don't have time for that. I take the car and park right in front of the location.
A few minutes later.
This is it, we're entering the facility. Any second now. Yeah, now we're inside, based on my map.
Alright, I'm in. Let me get rid of the car. Good, let's take a look around. We are getting close.
Wow.
We are in this bend, where no light from outside forces back the darkness. The tunnel system begins.
Let's get my gear, my PPE, and check it out.
Alright, before we continue, let me tell you where I am and what I'm up to.
Mission briefing started.
This location is a former airbase that has been abandoned for about 30 years. On the outside, there are multiple runways for takeoff and landing.
Loading airfield map.
The thing that caught my interest is the elaborated underground tunnel system built inside the mountain right next to the airfield. In the past, this network of caverns has been used to shelter personnel, equipment, and even fighter jets for the event of a nuclear attack. In terms of possible dangers, this location is a tough one. First of all, it's right next to a state border. Literally, since the border runs straight across the airfield. The problem is, it's not just any border, it's an outer border of the European Union, so I better should watch out for border controls. The second item on my list is nothing to joke about. The airfield, or at last the meadows and forests aside the roads, have been secured against enemy forces. This means that there are landmines. In case you wonder why I was overly cautious earlier, this is why. I know for a fact that most of the mines have been cleared 3 years ago, but since they still train dogs for searching landmines in this area, I'm not quite convinced that they found everything. This is no problem, as long as I stay on the roads. As soon as we are on the facility, a widely branched tunnel system with additional dangers awaits us.
Switching to facility map.
This is a very crude and incomplete map, but it will suffice to get in and out.
You try drawing something like that without hands. If you don't like it, draw it yourself.
That's not what I... Alright. There are 4 entrances to the tunnel system. Each of the entrances is secured by a heavy blast door made of almost 1 meter of reinforced concrete. Tunnel 1 of the underground airbase is contaminated with
polychlorinated biphenyls.
Thank you. It's also known as PCB. A peak value of 164 parts per million has been measured here. To cut a long answer short, that's a lot and it's dangerous for your long-term health. Transmission occurs mainly via dust particles, so an appropriate respirator, long clothes and gloves should protect me. Just to be on the safe side, I will avoid contaminated areas to the best of my knowledge. As for the other gates, gate number 3 is sealed off for all time, and gate number 4 is very close to the border. Too close for comfort. So, the only remaining entrance is number 2. We'll take that one. Within the facility, there are several connected main tunnels from which small side tunnels branch off. To keep it interesting, I've set myself a few goals. There's supposed to be an elevator to the control tower somewhere deep in the complex.
It is here.
Of course, the elevator hasn't been functional for a long time, but I would still like to see it. In one of the tunnels, there's a memorial shrine I want to pay my respects to. I don't know exactly where it is, so I have to search for it.
It is here.
If I'm lucky, I might just stumble over it. The sealed gate number 3 is said to be quite impressive. I have something very special planned here. And last but not least, I want to see the star. Where did that come from?
Sorry, it felt appropriate.
That's the heart of the facility. More on that once we get there. Besides PCB, there are other dangers. One of them is rockfall. As far as I know, none of the tunnels is in danger of immediate collapsing, but some of them are in a pretty bad shape. I know about critical spots here, 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 and here. Even thought I will avoid some of them. A helmet is a must-have here. There are many rumors about other countless dangers. One of them deals with the smoke detectors that were installed within the facility. Apparently, they contained radioactive material. And after what happened to the base, it is possible that some of the material leaked into the environment. I have a source claiming that the level of radioactivity within the base is even lower than outside. So, I'm pretty sure that the tunnels are not glowing in the dark. Figuratively speaking, of course. But in case I'm wrong, I should be fine with the previously mentioned protective equipment. Oh, did I mention that it's quite dark in there? I brought light. Lots of light. There's a lot to tell about this facility. I will share a couple of interesting stories along the way. Alright, let's rock.
Mission briefing finished. Resuming exploration.
The entrance we've just visited is the one of tunnel number 1. As mentioned, it is contaminated with PCB, so we enter tunnel number 2, right next to it. Chapter 3. Into Darkness.
Personal protective equipment deployed.
This is a concrete element for absorbing part of a nuclear blast. The construction was supposed to withstand the nuclear attack with an explosive force of 20 kilotons, which is roughly equivalent to the atomic bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki during the Second World War. The entrances and exits used by the aircrafts were protected by blast gates made of 60 to 80 centimeter thick reinforced concrete. Each gate is designed to be pulled close by its own weight. which is about 100 tons, as soon as the lock is released. The entrances were designed so that the shockwave would be reduced by concrete elements and bends in the tunnel. All of this was intended, among other things, to protect the fighter jets stationed within the base, so that they are still able to fly missions, even after the beginning of the end. We all know the mushroom-shaped explosion of an atomic bomb. However, the effects of a nuclear explosion at close range are difficult to imagine. This is what an impact directly on the airfield in front of the facility would have looked like. This is footage from a 43 kiloton explosion from the Operation Teapot series of tests carried out by the United States Armed Forces in 1955. It's a second sun right in front of your doorstep. Alright, let's do some exploration. This place is a labyrinth. They say that strange creatures roam these tunnels. I think I found them. Being overrun by a motorcycle while exploring a Cold War bunker. That would be a first. And also quite hard to explain. Chapter 4. Long way to the top. Let me tell you a few things about this beauty. So, story time. The facility was a child of its paranoid era, with World War II being its daddy and the Cold War being its mummy. Its task was, and I quote, to provide, integrate and coordinate the nationwide radar early warning network. This means the radar information from all over the country was accumulated, processed, and then used to make military decisions. A According to my sources, the conception of the facility and the search for a possible location began in 1948. Construction took place between 1956 and 1965. In 1968, the base was still unfinished, but was put into operation because of a crisis that threatened the country. The work continued intensively until 1978. The highest level of secrecy was ordered during the construction work. A number of well-known construction companies from the military sector were involved. The project was carried out in 3 shifts with around 250 workers. The construction work was a great state secret and nobody knew about it. That is, nobody except for the CIA and probably every other intelligence agency in the world as well. And it's not that it took them long to figure that out. I have a declassified spaceborne photo from 1968, the year the base was put into operation. Turns out that you can't build 5 giant runways and an underground tunnel system in the middle of nowhere without anyone getting wind of it. At the time, this was one of the largest and most expensive military structures in Europe and one of Europe's largest aircraft caverns. The base was so big that it had its own zip code. The costs were the current equivalent of around $6 billion US. It is strongly believed that much of the money came from the World Bank and was actually intended for road construction in the country. Well, they have good roads now, but you have to pay for them if you want to use them, because they are privatized. So, well played. I think it's time we search for our first objective. Let's go to the elevator shaft. This must be it. Down that hallway is the elevator shaft that led to the control center, which was built into the mountain 30 meters above the facility. It fulfills a similar function as the control tower of an airport. That is, the coordination of aircrafts taking off and landing. The control center can still be entered today, but not with an elevator. First, there is no power, and second, the elevator has been smashed into pieces and now blocks the upper part of the shaft, together with most of the other metal that is still on site. The remains of the elevator are somewhere up there. It's a dead end. The control center can still be reached via the surface along a narrow path. This has been done in the past, but I wouldn't bet my life on it that there aren't any landmines left. Chapter 5: Hidden Passage. Oh look, there's the Uber I called. It will drive me to my next objective. No, not really. Until 30 years ago, this facility was top secret. The guards had orders to shoot on sight. In practice, however, unauthorized personnel was simply turned away. The underground base had its own water supply, own power plant with diesel generators, an infirmary and crew quarters. The mess hall is said to be able to serve 1,000 people at the same time. There was enough ammunition, food and fuel to keep the facility running for 30 days without replenishment. We just entered the Fighter Regiment Command. Right now, there's not much left, but in the past, this room was used to coordinate the 3 squadrons of fighter jets stationed within the tunnels. We talk about 2 squadrons of MiG-21s used for combat missions and 1 squadron of MiG-21R tasked with reconnaissance. My sources don't quite agree on how many jets were based there. It is said to have been between 60 and 80. Parked outside the facility were additional aircraft that didn't fit into the tunnels. Good to know that even military projects costing billions of dollars have the same problem as the average person with his garage. This strange room has no annotation on my map. Let's see if we can figure out its purpose.
Must be climate control. This could be a sand filter.
And that's why you do voiceovers.
An air shaft. Or an emergency exit. Maybe both.
Next time, I bring a bike.
This place is huge. Chapter 6. In Memory. Ah, yes. This is our next objective. This memorial shrine was built in honor of 2 explorers, members of the team that did tons of research on this place and other locations in the area. One of them was known by the name that you can read here. Thank you. May you never be forgotten. Shortly after, I found this.
Gate 1, I presume.
I mean, Gate 1 as in Gate 3. I've planned something special for this place.
Blaze of Glory Protocol invoked.
Let's have a closer look at Gate 3. Fun fact: even if the gates somehow imply it, the planes didn't take off directly from the cavern, Battlestar Galactica style. In fact, this was repeatedly implied whenever certain publications from the armed forces called it an underground airbase. The intention was to give the impression that the planes were taking off shooting directly from the mountain, that is, Battlestar Galactica style. Whoops.
Don't worry, I would warn you before you would do something stupid. On a completely unrelated topic, have you bought me these very expensive upgrades yet?
The fact that someone marked this fuel line with fresh tape irritates me a bit. Let's see what's back there. Oh great, even bigger fuel lines. Don't worry, after what happened here, I don't think there's anything left that could burn. That's a public bathroom. Literally. After some sightseeing, I realized something. I don't know anymore where I am. I got lost. Yes, I have a map, but I lost track of my location. Nevertheless, I have a vague idea about where I am and where I need to go. I'm looking for something very specific. Ah, yes. Here we go. Chapter 7. The Star.
Sorry.
Huh. I thought I saw somebody. Again. This is it, the heart of the facility. It's called the Star, for obvious reasons. We are here, right at the entrance. The Star contains different rooms with a multitude of functions. Let's go and see them. At this point, I'm sure you're all dying to know why a multi-billion-dollar airbase is in ruins when it was active just 30 years ago. In 1991, a big war shattered a multi-ethnic communist state into the smaller shards we know today. This base had a high strategic value, therefore it was defended by troops loyal to the government of that state. That is, until 1992. In April of that year, the army withdrew from the airfield and blew up the runways. However, they did not want to give up the underground airbase itself. After all, it is a heavily fortified stronghold. So they handed it over to a friendly puppet state to watch over it. More on that later. This is the canteen, which supposedly could serve up to 1,000 people. The kitchen was also located here.
The mess hall really is a mess.
I had imagined it much bigger. But probably the people stationed here ate in shifts. What you hear crunching are old rolls of film. I have to say that this is the most interesting room for me. It's the glass room of the reconnaissance squadron that was stationed here. Apparently, large amounts of photos were stored here, which were recorded from the fighter jets. Someone tried to get some of the rolls developed at the university, but unfortunately without success. There are also a lot of documents lying around here. I assume someone would have put them away if they would contain something secret. So I will show them unblurred. This is the center of the Star. It also acts as an air conditioning chamber for this section. It's in danger of collapsing. But since it's in danger of collapsing since 30 years, I should be fine. Back to the story about the facility's destruction. The troops of the puppet state soon came to the conclusion that they could not hold the position. So, they decided to destroy the tunnel system and mine the surrounding areas. Well, you're probably wondering, how do you blow up a facility that can withstand a 20 kiloton nuclear explosion? No, not with a bigger bomb, but I like how you think. They filled the entire base with 56 tons of explosives right up to the top, closed the gates, and then lit the fuse. It is said that the detonations lasted for over 2 hours. The explosions that followed were so powerful that they shook the nearby town for 2 days. According to the residents, smoke was said to have come out of the tunnels 6 months after the destruction. I'm sure you remember the big hole in the blast gate right when we entered the underground facility. 60 centimeters of reinforced concrete. bent outwards by the force of that explosion. Please be aware that information about the exact purpose of the rooms in the star is hard to come by. So, please consider the information I provide here as an educated guess that I pieced together from multiple sources. This appears to have been a multi-purpose room. According to my information, the LORAP technicians were located here. LORAP stands for Long Range Aerial Panoramic Photographic System. Also, the encryption and decryption of messages seems to have been done here. But as you can see, the place has been demolished, and there's not much left. Behold, we're entering the Communications and Data Interception Center. Its designation translates to the ear. That's another case of they did this for obvious reasons. It stands to reason that radio communications with other military installations in the country took place from here. Earlier, I mentioned that the nationwide radar network was integrated and coordinated in this facility. I suspect that the information gathering part in the name of this room was related to said radar information. This is not according to German work safety guidelines. They are missing a "Wear a helmet" sticker. If I read this correctly, this book is about legal questions? Interesting. This is titled as a storage record card. And so are these. I'm not sure whether or not this contains personal information, so I blur it. If I read this map correctly, and there is definitely room for interpretation, then this place was the morgue. This is the command center. Here, the situation picture was put together, decisions were made, and orders were given. I assume that in the event of a nuclear attack, the nation's military would have been coordinated from here. This may have been part of a parachute. It's an educated guess, because we're entering the aerial warehouse. This is where they stored the parachutes. If I'm not mistaken, the dark coloring of the wall is a remnant of the explosion. It's empty. All complimentary memorial parachutes are already taken. Alright, last room. There used to be offices, including the classrooms of the fighter pilots. But now there's nothing left but a big ventilation pipe. Yes, this is the most exciting thing that happened here. Which is fine, because I'm in here for hours, and I'm starting to get really tired. Chapter 8. Contact. Alright, I've seen what I wanted to see. Let's make some pictures and then head back to the exit. But first, let's enjoy the absolute silence. Yeah, don't mind my Darth Vader impression. I think I've heard something. Let's double time it, just to be sure. I hang around, minding my own business, when suddenly... And as suddenly as it came, it's gone again. Or is it? And with the horde arriving, it's time for me to go. Because whenever tourists arrive, the place is too mainstream to be cool. Ooh. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. But before we leave, there's one other thing we have to do. A few days later. This is Sidekick. He gives me a final radiation check. He's also joining me on some of my future adventures.
Scheint Umgebung zu sein. Sehr gut, freue ich mich. Danke.
But that's a story for another time. Until then.
Stay tuned.
You've got to be kidding me. It's everywhere.